Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for setting this forum up. My name is Gary Johnson, and I spent 30 years working with the Lucas County Sheriff's Office. And I've been in the reserve with Lucas County for 30 years. Now, a lot of people have asked me, well, if you're a reservist, how does that qualify you to be a sheriff? Well, when I first got into the reserve for the first 10 years, I had to ride in the car with the deputies just like any deputy would, any police officer would, and we rode in the patrol and did everything. So I went on every type of a call you can think of: domestic violence, robbery, bar fights. They couldn't drop me off on the corner and say, I'll come back and get you. I had to be willing to act. I graduated from the police academy back in 1988. And from that point, I wanted to be involved in law enforcement. I had a passion for it, but I also owned a business, and they were only paying $12 an hour at that particular point in time, and I just couldn't give up my business to do it, so I did it on a voluntary basis, but I did it quite often because I really wanted to have the experience. We went on drug busts. We did just about every kind of law enforcement types of things that you can do. And so I gained my experience that way, and then I got involved in community policing. One of the things that you have to do as a reservist, if the president comes to town, the reserves get out and they protect the president. So we're putting our lives on the line. When we do a large scale thing like an air show, or we're downtown for the 4th of July, all of those things have us in uniform walking around with our weapons and putting our lives on the line in case anything happens. So we've had, that type of experience being in the reserve. It's almost like military reservists. We have to take all the same training that the deputies take. We aren't, out there without the training. They're not going to give you a gun and a badge and arrest powers without taking that training. So I have to have all of the same training. One of the reasons that I decided I wanted to do this and run for sheriff is because I was looking at the sheriff's office. And what I understand about the sheriff's office is it has to evolve. It has to continue to evolve. And in a lot of cases, if we go in there and we don't look at the entire office, there's a law enforcement division, but our law enforcement division is probably smaller than the size of the Sylvania Police Department. It's not even as large as the Oregon Police Department, but it covers a large geographical area. But we also have a jail that has to be run. That is 70% of the sheriff's budget is running that jail. And so one has to go in there and make sure that they have the management skills to get that done. Owning my own business for 30 years has given me those skill sets that I need to be able to go in and look at the sheriff's office in its totality, understand the law enforcement division, and I know that I can hire a very experienced career law enforcement officer to run that division. I know I can hire a great jail administrator to run that division. And I also understand there's a civil division with the courts and transporting prisoners. So those can all be done. But the sheriff is more of a CEO and more of an administrator, and you have to have those skills to be able to do that. And I know as a candidate for that office, I've got those skills to get that done. I've also got some political skills, and that's one of the things that I have that no other candidate has. And when we talk about the new jail being built, and I'm in favor of the jail being downtown, it has to stay downtown. That's where the courts are. Like Chief Navarre said, everything centers around that, plus the families of the incarcerated people there. They have to be able to get to that jail, so having it centrally located, having public transportation to get down there is a humane thing to do. So putting it way out on Angola or putting it way out on Detroit or wherever, that just wouldn't work. I mean, it's just, and the concept wouldn't work. I understood all of the idea about having, it be horizontal and having it all be on one floor. But the fact of the matter is, I think you could do 2-3 stories in the downtown area, put your administrative offices on the top floor, put your food service on the second floor, and you still have your iPod down on the first floor where all of the inmates would be, and still have a safe, well-run, efficient jail. So I think it can get done. One of the other things that's going to take place is it's got to get paid for. That's going to take somebody with some political experience to be able to go out and sell the idea of getting a bond levy in order to do that jail. There's a lot of different things that are tied into it. So Those are, you know, some of the things that I feel give me some unique skill sets in order to be able to go out and do those things. With regards to the current jail that we have now, it is a mess. I don't know how else to say it. We're putting millions of dollars in that jail, just repairing things that are eventually going to break down again. And it's just, it's a mess. It's run very inefficiently when the elevators aren't working. There's a safety issue trying to get people upstairs when something happens. And even when the elevators are working, they're working slowly, so having to get a lot of correction officers in a particular place in a hurry, that's just not going to happen in that particular jail. Yes, sir?
With all your experience politically and your skill sets, how come you, when you were on city council, never stood up and said, we don't want the jail over on Detroit? How come you never brought that before city council and had it put on the ballot automatically? Instead, you said nothing, and the citizens had to organize and push an initiative through.
I had spoke with the group that was saying that they wanted the jail down now and
not that you spoke to the group, but how come you didn't take action, or anybody on city council? How come nobody on city council, including the council member over there, never stood up and stood for the people?
Because city
now
council.
You're saying that you're going to do it.
Because city council.
Wow.
As a city councilman, I took an oath to take care of the city of Toledo. And the jail was not something that we had any authority over. We constantly have certain council people that want to
But you listen to the citizens of Toledo.
I listened to the citizens.
Push that.
I was one of the ones that voted to make sure that they could put that on the ballot. Because
you voted as a private citizen after the citizens had organized. That's just my point, is how come you or no other city council member stood up and just had that put on the ballot?
I'm trying to explain that to you, but every time I try to explain it to you,
you're not giving me direct answers.
What answer are you looking for?
How come you didn't stand up and have city council put it on the ballot automatically, instead of make those citizens organize and spend their time going hours and hours to the doors trying to get signatures?
Because first of all, it wasn't a city matter. Second of all, trying to get that particular initiative on the ballot still had to be a referendum. It wasn't something city council could do because legally, we don't have the authority to tell the county where to put the jail. We still would have to go to court if the county decided they wanted to put the jail out on Alexis and Detroit. We don't have that type of authority. Look what happened with Lake Erie. A federal judge shot it down and said, you don't have the authority, even though the citizens voted for it, to make the lake a person and give the lake rights.
I still don't think I got the answer, but I'm just going to let you carry on.
In any case, personnel costs, I do think the jail we would be able to cut our costs down. But I think even with the existing jail, we can cut our costs down. It's merely a matter of going in and looking at the shifts the way they are now and trying to rearrange the shifts. We'd have to work with the unions in order to get that done. It's not going to be an easy thing, but I do think it can be done, and it's something that I would work towards. With regards to the opiate crisis, I do think it's a tragedy what's happening in our cities and what's happening all over the country. And I really just think it's totally sad that we've got elderly people that end up getting pain pills and end up getting addicted to opiates. So I'm in favor of continuing the DART program. I'm in favor of working on making sure that we try to expand that program by bringing people in with mental health abilities, people that work in the mental health field to assist the DART agents. And I think we can do that by getting grants. I've talked with Scott Silik, he's in favor of that. We're talking about doing, and through the MacArthur grant, they've developed a thing called the Deflection Center. And this would allow people that are addicted to drugs that are no harm to themselves or other people to be able to go to a deflection center and not even get involved in the criminal justice system, as opposed to being arrested, incarcerated, and then end up seeing a judge. They would end up going to the deflection center, sleeping off, and when they woke up, they're facing a counselor instead of a judge. And I think that's a more humane way of doing it. I think people with mental health problems, same thing. They need to have treatment. They don't need to be in jail. And so having a deflection center and then having something called a diversion program, which is also something that they're working on, will help reduce jail population. And if you can reduce jail population, you reduce crime. So ultimately, that's what you want to be able to do, is do that by coming up with programs that allow that to happen. I also think there's another thing that we need to be conscious of, and that is that we have an overabundance of people that are in jail that really know they made a mistake and want to start their lives over again. And so I'd like to try to develop programs that would allow these people to get a chance to go through a program and then give that information to the judge so they can get an appropriate sentence. When you have money, you're able to fight back in the criminal justice system. When you don't, it's very, very difficult to do that. So I'm in favor of trying to develop programs that would give those people that don't have the means to fight back an opportunity to go before a judge, showing that they really have remorse and that they really want to start their lives around and see what we can do to try to put them in some type of a diversion program as well. With regards to marijuana, it is a gateway drug. I don't think we're going to win the war arresting people. I think they made strides in finding out that you can use it medically, and doctors are giving prescriptions for people to be able to get marijuana, not necessarily to smoke in Ohio, but they can consume it, and it does work. So I have mixed emotions about it. I do worry that it would become a gateway drug if it just runs free, but I think under controlled circumstances, it's just something we're going to have to continue to take a look at. I really feel that it's coming to a point where we will be a lot like Colorado, where it's going to be there. I don't think Colorado fell apart. I don't think there's an abundance of crime and things like that simply because they legalized it. So I think what Ohio should be doing is taking a look at other states that have legalized it and see what they're doing in order to make sure that it doesn't run rampant or get out of control. Excessive force. I believe in community policing, and I believe when people get to know each other, it reduces a lot of tension. If I have to walk up to an individual's car and I don't know who that individual is, I'm going to be very, very careful about how I approach that car. And if that individual doesn't know who I am, and he's heard about police shootings, that individual is going to be very, very tense. And anybody making a wrong move could just create a very negative situation. So I think having community policing would eliminate a lot of that because people would know who one another are. If you're working a beat or working an area, get out of the car. Go meet the people in the neighborhood. Find out what they're all about. Let them know what you're all about. And then when you end up stopping somebody, if you know one another, that hoodie's not going to scare you. That uniform that police officer's not going to scare you. So it really is a matter of getting out and having people interact with one another. And any kind of excessive force because somebody feels like they've got a badge and that's not the paper we want to use, we should have a zero tolerance on that, and that should never be tolerated. Those people should be brought up and disciplined immediately for something like that. And make sure that if it's a continued situation, we work towards eliminating those people. And I would not be afraid to fire somebody if they can't control themselves.
When you say community policing, you're talking having the police officers go and make themselves known and say hello?
Absolutely. So if you're having a block party, what's wrong with getting out of the car and going over there and talking to people and saying, hey, my name's Gary, what's yours? They're doing it in Toledo right now, and it's working well. We've reduced crime in Toledo. We had a situation where somebody called the police and said these kids are riding their sleds up and down the street and they're making a nuisance of themselves, and so the police went over to see what was going on. They realized there was no traffic over there, so they filmed themselves riding down on the sleds with the kids. They go and got a complaint that they were playing basketball at Wade High School late at night and causing a disturbance. You could barely hear these kids, so the police got out of the car and went and played basketball. I've seen them get out of the car and go throw a football. That's good community policing. That is what will reduce crime, getting to know the people in the communities that you serve. Racism, I just have a zero tolerance for it. As somebody that is a person of color, I can remember being pulled over by the police and being asked, what are you doing in this neighborhood? That should never happen to anybody. If you have a valid reason to stop somebody, then you have to do your due diligence. You have to, that is what you were hired to do and go out and do as a law enforcement officer, is to enforce the laws and to make sure that you know what's going on in the neighborhood. So there's nothing wrong with stopping a person, but let them know why you stopped them. Let them know that all you want to do is get through the process and that he can get on his way and you can get on your way. there's just no reason for somebody to feel like they have the ability to do, you know, to treat somebody differently simply because they feel that way in their personal life. It has no place in place work. That pretty much covers everything in there, so at that point, I'd love to take some questions.
About the opiates,
Sure.
you're wanting to go for, you said the elderly, they get pills and they're getting addicted to these narcotics. Are you talking like prescribed from doctors, are you talking from the streets?
Well, it generally starts out where they're getting the prescriptions from their doctor because they have pain. And then they continue to take the pills, and the next thing you know, they're addicted to the pills, and when their doctor tells them they can't give you any more pills, then they'll go to the street to get them. It's not just a thing where you're seeing young kids get addicted to opiates. There are a lot of seniors getting addicted to them simply because they start out with pain, and, you know, it continues to grow, and the next thing you know, their doctor's telling them, you really don't have the pain, it's mental, but they're hooked on the drug.
I guess my thought there, my experience with people that were addicted, if they're not ready to change, they don't really care what is offered to them. What is special about your programs?
I don't know that you're ever gonna save the world, but I do believe as long as you've got those programs out there, and as long as you're talking to people, there are people that will reach bottom and seek treatment. And there are people every single day. DART's having a lot of success with getting people that wanna try to turn their lives around and get straight, so. It happens, you know, and what do? Do you stop simply because only 10 or 20% of the people, you know, want to get healthy and others don't?
I guess I was curious in what ways you're planning on approaching this rise to convince people maybe not to start to change before they hit rock bottom.
Continue to work with people that are in that field. I know I started a thing called the Opiate Overdose Response Team. It went on during my time in council, and we got all of the county officials together, the emergency room doctors, with police, fire, first responders, all of us got together, and one of the things we found out was we weren't communicating with one another. There were a lot of times when the first responders would pick up people and they would release themselves against medical advice. They would just decide they wanted no more treatment and walk away, and DART knew nothing about these people. So now DART is getting this information, and they're able to go follow up with those people to see if they can help them. So it's just a matter of everybody getting together, collaborating, and working with one another to develop a program that everybody can use and be a part of.
We had a member wanted to know, I'm not sure if you touched on it with the first one, the new jail, but he wanted to know your plans for nonviolent offenders. Well, everybody's plans when you get up here. Nonviolent versus violent. Did you talk about the different parts of the new jail?
I've talked about the idea that as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to nonviolent offenders that have no harm to themselves and haven't done anything, obviously we have to enforce laws. We cannot, you know, just let people go. We don't have that ability. But we can use our judgment, we can use our discretion to say if this particular person did something, I don't necessarily have to arrest them. So if those crimes fit, then I'm looking for a way to get them involved in a program so that they can basically rehabilitate themselves and not become a problem. The idea is to try to keep people from getting to jail. And I really think this works much better with juveniles. Because if you can get a juvenile to stay out of the criminal justice system, there's an 80% chance he will not be in the criminal justice system as an adult. So working with them, using that discretion, making sure that you're putting them in those type of deflection programs and deferment programs really work well to try to keep the youth from getting in there, and that again will reduce jail population.
About 1 minute left. It'd be a short question if any more questions.
Yes,
obviously we're talking about, major crimes and violent crimes. What do you think about using law enforcement to make civilian living a little better, such as enforcing laws about snow shoveling, parking, things like that?
I don't think we have enough police officers to go out and do that, but the city of Toledo does have a neighborhood enforcement group, and they will go out if somebody's not shoveling their snow, and they will either ticket them or they will have the city come out and remove the snow, and then they will end up putting it on their tax bill, and if they don't end up paying it, eventually their house can be taken away. That's anything from cutting grass, to having a nuisance property or anything like that. So there is a mechanism to enforce those laws. It's just not gonna be done through law enforcement.
So, then you call the neighborhood department rather than the police if there's a law being broken?
If it's an ordinance and not necessarily a crime,
Okay.
okay, there's a difference between the two.
And this is what we were talking about at our last meeting with Officer
Right.
Scott.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Warner is next.